Okay. All right. So, a Game of Thrones. I reread Game of Thrones, or Song of Ice and Fire, and I definitely would like to share a bit of my thoughts on that. First things first, though, I have read these books before, obviously reread, but this is the third time through. The first time I read it, like I think a lot of people, 2011, watched the first season, read all the books, then I reread them all in 2015, and then now, 10 years later for the third time in 2025. Okay, so let's get to the point. What do I think? Gosh, so many thoughts, but I think I'm going to try to be somewhat concise here. I think George has messed up his series. I don't think there's. I don't think that's a new opinion. But as much as I appreciate George and appreciate his writing and appreciate everything he's done and appreciate the first three books, I do think that he has messed up his series, and I do think it's because of book 4 and 5. I think that books 4 and 5 are not as good as the first three. There's so many conversations I think anyone can have out of A Feast for Crows and A Dance for Dragons. But for me personally, I think again that the quality is not there as is present in the first three books, and I think you can sort of see it in the material that it's not his best foot forward, it's not his best stuff, it's obviously not as good as I said, as the first three books, and I think that's certainly where I stand. And again, I think it's kind of fair and objectively so to say that he's sort of messed it up. I'm not going to make this an enormous video and go into all the details and reasons why. Maybe someday I would on a fourth reread, but I think to somewhat generalize that of the why I think he's messed it up is that there's just a lot of questionable plot choices and plot directions and plotting, I should say actually, that George made in books 4 and 5 that I don't think are the best. And I think that shows in, again, the material, but I think it also shows in the story itself of books 4 and 5. There's so much that happens in the first three books, and then I feel like in books 4 and 5, it's much more of a linear tale that doesn't really have the same encompassment as the first three books. And considering how large and how many characters there are in books 4 and 5, I think that's kind of interesting for me to have as an opinion. I don't really want to get into all the details and start naming characters and this and that, but that's generally my opinion. I appreciate that he's did the series. I still enjoyed reading book 4. I still enjoyed reading books 4 and 5. I think book 5 is definitely probably the worst. Particularly the second half is very, very bloated, and I feel like there could have been a lot of editing and change, with a lot of those chapters. Book 4, I thought was a little bit better and a little bit tighter in sort of its narration and its choreography. One could say of the plot. But I still have the same general opinion of it with books 4 and 5, is that it's kind of what do I want to say? It's kind of a why. It's for me. It's kind of a why question. Why has he chosen these plot lines? Why has he done this with a lot of these characters? Why is he going in this direction? It doesn't seem like it's the best choice for some of them. It doesn't seem like it's. It doesn't seem like it's his best material, and that is definitely where I'm at now. But also, it's something that I was thinking of, particularly throughout book 5. Sorry, is that what I was thinking of? That's what I was thinking of throughout book 5, particularly. So, yeah. So I still appreciate these books. I think people should totally read them. I definitely fall in the camp of books 4 and 5 are not as good, and and I really questioned the why of his. So I really questioned his choices and it starts me to ask why. Why is he doing this? Why in this direction? All that sort of stuff. So I'll just say that again. But yeah. The other thing I wanted to say is that I think, with the context of what George has said over the past while about his books, and also just the online discussion about if everybody's going to finish them, and people talking about he hasn't written a book in 14 years. I think that it's totally understandable that people can sort of have these criticisms, but one thing I think that people are missing when they have these conversations is it's actually been 25 years that George has been struggling writing these books. I don't know all the details of what happened with this book split with 4 and 5. I've heard that stuff online, but for me, I think it's pretty clear that since 2000, the man has been struggling to write A Song of Ice and Fire. And I think that's something that people are really genuinely missing, is that there's this conversation about since 2011, he's only written one book, but if you just look in the material and think about what he's going to do and how he's going to progress the story with all these different characters and what he's built up at this point, I think that really shows the great struggle that he's in. Because it seems like I think it's kind of clear, but to me, he's been struggling for 25 years, since 2000, since the beginning of this century. He's been struggling to write these books. So, I think that's why there is no book 6. There's tons of other reasons, but I think that that's one reason that is not. It's not. I don't know who knows. Discussed online, but I haven't really seen that online. I haven't seen people talking about. Well, it's been 25 years and he's only written 2 books. And there's a bit of a discussion within the fandom that the book 4 and 5 are even his best. Because I know I'm not the only person that thinks that book 4 and 5 are not his best work. Like the first 3. So yeah, I definitely wanted to say that. I don't think there's anything else, man, at the same time, God bless George. I don't care, if he ever finishes. I'm totally indifferent, as much as I love the story and I'm disappointed in books 4 and 5. The man deserves peace, and if he writes it, he writes another one. If he doesn't, so be it. I'm just grateful that he has written these books and you get to see the world and see the characters. Even in books 4 and 5, and when I don't think it's his best work, because there still is things that are interesting in it, but overall not as many times, not as good as his first 3. Yeah, that's about it. All right, it says 8 whatever, but yeah, that's it. Thanks very much if you're watching this. Cheesy to say, but please like and subscribe. It does actually help. I would like to do more of this again. I did this years ago, then stopped for a while. But yeah, it clearly does help with the math behind the scenes and whatnot. And thanks. Peace out, everyone. Take care.